What was the reason behind Obama's secret trip to Antarctica? What was the reason for CIA Director James Clapper's simultaneous visit to Australia? Why did Russia's top religious leader go to Antarctica? There has been a virtual media blackout about these highly unusual trips made by officials in Russia and the US. There are a couple of sources that cited Obama traveled to the southern tip of Argentina before crossing the Drake Passage to Antarctica. Indeed, Obama's secret trip comes at a highly unusual time. It follows on the heels of a visit by Patriarch Kirill of Russia. Kirill met with Pope Francis in Havana, Cuba, less than 1 week before he departed for Antarctica. Media sources described the meeting between the two religious leaders as urgent. Nothing like this has happened since the 1054 AD schism that separated Eastern Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism. Why an urgent meeting between these leaders was called after a millennium of never meeting with one another is a mystery. The mainstream media reported that the meeting between Francis and Kirill was meant to condemn persecution of Christians around the world and to foster ecumenical dialogue. But again, it comes at an unusual time, because 4 days after this meeting, Kirill arrived in Antarctica and performed a religious ceremony blessing the land and water surrounding the continent. He praised the barren lands of Antarctica as, quote, a model of an ideal humanity. Kirill also said the following, quote, Antarctica is the only place where there are no weapons, no military activity, there are no scientific studies focused on the emergence of a new means of destruction. It is a perfect image of humanity and a testimony to the fact that people can live like this. No borders, no weapons, no hostile competition, that they can cooperate and feel as members of one family, unquote. The reason I find Obama and Russian visits to Antarctica very strange is the following. There was another country, another regime, that visited Antarctica just before a Great World War started. The Nazis led an expedition of 33 members, including scientists, to Antarctica, just before the start of World War II in September 1939. Their expedition to New Swabia lasted from December 1938 to February 1939. It is known that the Nazis took thousands of photos using airplanes during this expedition. They also took reels of colored film, which was rare at the time and very expensive to produce. The regime was clearly looking for something in Antarctica. But what was it? What were they there for? 2 earlier expeditions to Antarctica by the Nazis were also very alarming. They were intent to map out the terrain of the continent using hot air balloons for aerial footage. The Nazis even attempted, during these 2 expeditions, to walk across the entire continent and map out its landscape. It's still unclear why they engaged in so much surveying. Let us go back to World War II and listen to an interview given by an American naval officer named Richard Byrd. Byrd was stationed and lived in Antarctica for some time. Byrd made astonishing claims about the continent, that it could be the key to a future controversy that would erupt between various countries, not merely regarding the issue of resources, that precious metals, mineral deposits, and even uranium have been found in Antarctica. No, Richard Byrd seems to suggest that something else was there.
Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this Earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable. Not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Admiral, an expedition to which I believe you're the advisor is now en route. What is that expedition doing?
Well, that's the icebreaker Echo, and it's a reconnaissance expedition. It's going down to the South Pole area to make certain observations and to look for some bases. They will be back in April, and they will report back, and upon the information we get from that undertaking, we will base the bigger expedition that's to follow.
Is that very definitely planned, or is that...
That is being planned right now. So I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year.
Richard Byrd verified that Antarctica wasn't about resources, but rather that the Nazis had established secret bases for some reason. Perhaps they were protecting something. Operation High Jump, coordinated by Byrd, which included US, Russian, Australian, and British forces, was meant to close in on the Nazis' strange operations in Antarctica. We'll return to Richard Byrd later on in this video. The logo for the Nazis' third expedition to Antarctica shows that they were interested in a particular portion of the continent called New Swabia. You can see on this emblem that there were lines drawn to bring your attention to an exact coordinate, ending on a particular target. Perhaps the Nazis were hiding a secret in plain sight, that they had located something. Were they pointing us, perhaps, to a hole that existed into the earth? A pathway into the center of a hollow earth. There is evidence to suggest that the Nazis believed in the hollow earth and held to an understanding that perhaps there was a passageway to the other side. While hollow earth is not a popular idea these days, it was during World War II. In fact, it was suggested that most of the top Nazi officials believed in a hollow earth concept. Many within Nazi pop culture also believed in a hollow earth, including German writer Karl Neupert. In the book called Between Science and Fiction, The Hollow Earth as Concept and Conceit, the author documents that Neupert began what appeared to be a cult following of hollow earth believers in Germany at the time. The idea was that the earth was shaped like an eyeball, a portal leading into it where the North Pole is located, and another portal leading into it where the South Pole is located. The inner portion of the earth is hollow. Likewise, the eye has an entry where blood is pumped into it, but the actual eye globe is hollow, filled with a substance called vitreous humor to protect it. Toward the end of the eye, a lens is located that resembles a mass of land in an ocean. At the center of this landmass is another hole, the pupil. The strange resemblance between hollow earth and a human eyeball is unmistakable. Antarctica was a point of entry into the very pupil of the earth. Interestingly, many Christians throughout history have held to a view of a hollow earth without realizing it. That's because for many centuries, Christians have viewed hell as a place underneath the crust of the earth, a place of fiery torment where condemned souls go. The Nazis, however, believe the opposite, that perhaps this place inside the earth was not for condemned souls, but a place where the master race, their ancestors, dwelled. Nazi belief in the location of the master race was based on a New Age theosophist who had a profound influence on their philosophy and esotericism. Helena Blavatsky suggested that inner earth was not the place of hell, but a place where the master race lived. Admiral Richard Byrd is arguably one of the most controversial voices on the subject of hollow earth. The truth is that Byrd organized a mission called Operation High Jump to stop Nazi ambitions in Antarctica even after World War II had ended. It was officially classified as a reconnaissance mission, yet several members of Operation High Jump died mysteriously.
Admiral, you make
Do
this
we-
sound a little crowded. Are there that many expeditions now there or en route there?
Well, you know, as I said, it's the most peaceful place in the world, but I don't think it will be for long because of this intense interest on the part of other nations and this nation.
This latest expedition now on the way is a government expedition, I take it.
Yes, that's the government. I tell you one reason they're interested. It's by far the most valuable, important place left in the world for science. That's why the scientific groups all over the nation are really interested. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime.
The United States was on a mission to find whatever the Nazis hid in Antarctica. Shortly after Operation High Jump was completed, the United States began to promote the idea that the Earth was a solid ball with maybe a small core of magma, no entry or exit into the inner Earth, no settlements or secret bases underground, no potential escape for the Nazis. This idea came into full force using the US's newly created NASA. Byrd, who had begun to speak out about Hollow Earth towards the end of his life, died approximately 1 year before NASA was launched by the US. Certainly, if this was merely a Nazi claim, with no other substantiating commentary or research, then we could just simply disregard it. But it is a fact that Hollow Earth maps have been drawn for centuries. Famous members of the Illuminati, including Edgar Allan Poe and Jules Verne, alluded to Hollow Earth in their writings, that there was a world underneath the crust that we stand on. One of the most striking affirmations that an opening to another world was identified was made by Richard Byrd himself. Byrd's diary was mysteriously published in 1990 by a company called Inner Light. In the 68-page publication, Byrd suggested that a land existed beyond the pole where he was stationed for many years around the time of World War II. He made two mysterious bombshell statements in his diary. One was that he was ordered to keep silent about everything he had witnessed in Antarctica, and two, that he had witnessed the land beyond the pole, the center of the great unknown. Let us not forget that thousands of top-secret scientists in Germany seemed to disappear overnight at the end of the war. Some people believe that they escaped to the United States in something called Operation Paperclip, but some others are a bit more suspicious, thinking that perhaps these scientists made a quick exit off of the face of the world, literally, to the hollow reaches of the Earth, perhaps into the very inner quarters and to the location where another race of beings dwell. Did the Nazis go underground when the time came for their demise? And is this now the plan of the elites when World War III begins? Is the route of an escape in Antarctica?